For privacy reasons, names and places have been changed. This story is inspired by true events.
On the night of November 19, 1994, 17-year-old Lisa Chen vanished without a trace after attending a Nirvana tribute concert at the Riverside Theater in Portland, Oregon. The high school senior had gone to the show with friends but never made it to their planned meeting spot after the concert ended, disappearing somewhere in the chaos of thousands of fans leaving the venue. Despite an extensive investigation involving Portland police, the FBI, and hundreds of volunteers, no trace of Lisa was ever found. The case became one of Oregon's most baffling missing person mysteries, with investigators unable to determine what had happened to the responsible teenager who had simply wanted to see her favorite band's music performed one more time. For 2 years, Lisa's disappearance remained unsolved, gradually fading from daily headlines but never from the minds of her family and friends who refused to give up hope. Then, in December 1996, a maintenance worker conducting routine cleaning at the Riverside Theater made a discovery that would finally provide answers to questions that had haunted the Portland community for years. Hidden deep inside a wall ventilation shaft, janitor Marcus Williams found a leather jacket that had been deliberately stuffed into the ductwork and concealed for over 2 years. Inside the jacket's pockets, Williams would discover evidence that would not only solve Lisa Chen's disappearance but would also expose a truth that was far more sinister than anyone had imagined. This is the complete investigation into Lisa Chen's disappearance, from the crowded concert venue where she vanished to the shocking revelation that would emerge from inside the very building where she was last seen alive. Chapter 1: The Last Concert. November 19, 1994 was a cold, rainy Saturday night in Portland, Oregon. But the weather couldn't dampen the excitement of the thousands of music fans gathering at the Riverside Theater for a tribute concert to Nirvana, the legendary grunge band whose frontman Kurt Cobain had died earlier that year. For 17-year-old Lisa Chen, the concert represented something deeply meaningful. Lisa had been a devoted Nirvana fan since middle school, and Cobain's death in April 1994 had affected her profoundly. The tribute concert, featuring several Seattle bands performing Nirvana's music, was her way of saying goodbye to her musical hero. Lisa was a senior at Franklin High School in Portland, where she maintained good grades while working part-time at a local record store. Her parents, David and Helen Chin, described their daughter as responsible and mature, someone who rarely caused them worry about her judgment or decision-making. The Chin family had immigrated to Portland from Taiwan when Lisa was 8 years old, and David worked as an engineer while Helen taught ESL classes at a community college. They had initially been hesitant about Lisa attending the concert, but her enthusiasm and promise to stay with friends had convinced them to allow her to go. Lisa had purchased tickets for the show with her 3 closest friends: Jennifer Walsh, 17, Sarah Martinez, 16, and Amy Thompson, 17. The 4 girls had been planning to attend the concert for months, saving money from part-time jobs and coordinating their schedules to ensure they could all go together. The Riverside Theater was a mid-sized venue in downtown Portland that typically hosted concerts, comedy shows, and other live performances. The theater had a capacity of approximately 2,500 people and was known for attracting both local and touring acts across various musical genres. On the night of November 19th, the venue was sold out, with fans of all ages gathering to hear tribute performances of Nirvana's music. The concert featured 3 Seattle bands, Soundgarden, Alice in Chains, and Pearl Jam, performing acoustic and electric versions of Nirvana songs. Lisa and her friends arrived at the theater around 6:30 p.m., about an hour before the show was scheduled to begin. They waited in line with hundreds of other fans, excited about the evening ahead and discussing their favorite Nirvana songs that they hoped to hear performed. The concert began at 7:30 p.m. and was an emotional experience for many fans who were still mourning Cobain's death. Lisa was particularly moved by the performances, often singing along with tears in her eyes as her favorite songs were performed by some of the era's most respected musicians. During the concert, Lisa and her friends stayed together in the general admission area near the stage. However, as the evening progressed and the venue became more crowded, the group occasionally became separated as people moved around to get better views or visit the restrooms. The concert ended at approximately 10:45 p.m., and as the thousands of fans began to exit the venue, Lisa and her friends had planned to meet at Jennifer's car, which was parked 3 blocks away on Pine Street. They had established this plan earlier in the evening to ensure they could find each other in the post-concert chaos. However, when Jennifer, Sarah, and Amy reached the car at 11:15 p.m., Lisa was not there. Initially, they assumed she had been delayed by the crowds or had stopped at the merchandise table to purchase a t-shirt or poster as a memento of the concert. The friends waited at the car for 30 minutes, calling Lisa's name and checking nearby areas where she might have gone. They also returned to the theater to look for her, but the venue was nearly empty by this time, with only cleanup crews and security personnel remaining. At 11:45 p.m., when Lisa still hadn't appeared and wasn't answering the pager they had tried to contact her with, her friends became seriously concerned. They decided to call Lisa's parents to see if she had somehow made it home ahead of them. David Chen answered the phone and was immediately worried when he learned that Lisa's friends couldn't find her. He and Helen immediately drove to downtown Portland to join the search for their daughter, bringing flashlights and checking every area where Lisa might have gone. The Chens and Lisa's friends spent the next 2 hours searching the area around the Riverside Theater, checking parking lots, nearby restaurants, and any place where Lisa might have stopped or taken shelter from the rain. They found no trace of their daughter and friend. At 2 a.m. on November 20th, after nearly 3 hours of searching, the Chen family made the decision to contact the Portland Police Department. The call was received by Officer Michael Rodriguez, who immediately recognized the seriousness of a missing teenager case. Officer Rodriguez arrived at the Riverside Theater at 2:20 a.m. and began taking statements from Lisa's friends and family about her last known whereabouts and activities. The investigation revealed that Lisa had been separated from her friends during the concert's final song but had confirmed their meeting plan just before the show ended. The last confirmed sighting of Lisa Chen was at approximately 10:40 p.m. inside the Riverside Theater, when she had told Jennifer Walsh that she was going to the restroom and would meet them at the car. She had never made it to the planned meeting location. By dawn on November 20th, Lisa Chen had been missing for over 7 hours, and investigators had found no evidence to explain her disappearance. The teenager who had been so excited about hearing her favorite band's music had vanished somewhere between the theater's restroom and the exit, leaving behind only questions and a family desperate for answers. The search for Lisa Chen was about to become one of Portland's most intensive missing person investigations, involving hundreds of volunteers and law enforcement officers in a desperate effort to find a teenager who seemed to have disappeared into the night. Chapter 2: The Investigation. The search for Lisa Chen began in earnest on November 20, 1994, as the Portland Police Department recognized that her disappearance from a crowded concert venue required immediate and extensive resources to maximize the chances of finding her alive. Detective Lieutenant Sarah Mitchell was assigned as the lead investigator. With 15 years of experience in missing person cases, Mitchell immediately understood that the first 48 hours would be critical in determining Lisa's fate, especially given the chaotic environment from which she had vanished. The investigation began with detailed interviews of Lisa's 3 friends, who were able to provide a comprehensive timeline of the evening's events up until Lisa's disappearance. The friends were clearly distraught and cooperated fully with investigators, providing every detail they could remember. The interviews revealed that Lisa had seemed completely normal throughout the evening and had shown no signs of distress or unusual behavior. She had been excited about the concert and had been looking forward to discussing the performances with her friends on the drive home. Detective Mitchell also interviewed the Chen family extensively, focusing on Lisa's state of mind, her relationships, and any recent changes in behavior that might be relevant. The investigation revealed no obvious reasons why Lisa would have left voluntarily or why she might have been targeted by someone. The physical search began with a systematic examination of the Riverside Theater and the immediate surrounding area. Portland police officers, assisted by volunteers, checked every area where Lisa might have gone or where she might have been taken against her will. The theater management provided full cooperation with the investigation, allowing police to search all areas of the building, including backstage areas, storage rooms, and maintenance spaces. However, the initial search revealed no evidence of Lisa's presence beyond the restroom where she was last seen. The investigation expanded to include interviews with everyone who had been working at the theater on November 19th. This included security personnel, ushers, bartenders, merchandise vendors, and cleanup crews who might have seen Lisa or noticed anything unusual. One potentially significant lead emerged from the interviews with theater staff. A security guard named Robert Walsh reported seeing a young woman matching Lisa's description near the theater's back exit around 11 p.m., approximately 20 minutes after the concert had ended. However, Walsh couldn't be certain that the person he had seen was Lisa, as the lighting was poor and he had only glimpsed her briefly. Additionally, the timing of the sighting was inconsistent with when Lisa was supposed to have gone to the restroom. Detective Mitchell also investigated the 3 bands that had performed at the concert, as well as their crew members and any other musicians or industry personnel who had been at the theater. However, all of these individuals had verifiable alibis and no connections to Lisa. The FBI joined the investigation on November 22, bringing federal resources and expertise in cases involving missing persons who might have been transported across state lines. Special Agent David Kim was assigned to work with local investigators. Agent Kim's first priority was to analyze the possibility that Lisa had been abducted by someone who was familiar with the theater's layout or who had been specifically targeting concertgoers. The crowded venue would have provided cover for someone with malicious intent. The investigation revealed that the Riverside Theater had minimal security camera coverage in 1994, with cameras only in the lobby and main entrance areas. The cameras did show Lisa entering the theater with her friends but did not capture her movements inside the venue or any potential exit. Investigators also examined the guest list and ticket sales for the concert, looking for any individuals with criminal backgrounds or concerning histories. However, the analysis of over 2,500 ticket purchasers produced no obvious suspects or persons of interest. The search expanded to include all areas within a reasonable walking distance of the theater. Teams of volunteers and police officers checked parking lots, alleys, parks, and any location where Lisa might have gone voluntarily or where she might have been taken. The case received extensive media coverage throughout Oregon and the Pacific Northwest, with Lisa's photograph appearing on television news programs and in newspapers. The story of a teenager disappearing after a concert captured public attention and generated numerous tips. However, most of the tips proved to be false leads or cases of mistaken identity. Several people reported seeing young women who resembled Lisa in various locations throughout Portland and neighboring cities, but investigation revealed that none of these sightings involved Lisa herself. One tip that seemed particularly promising came from a taxi driver who reported picking up a young woman matching Lisa's description near the theater around 11:30 p.m. on November 19. However, further investigation revealed that the passenger had been a different person entirely. As November 1994 turned into December, Lisa had been missing for nearly 2 weeks without any confirmed sightings or physical evidence. The investigation had involved hundreds of law enforcement officers and volunteers but had produced no concrete leads about her whereabouts. The case was particularly frustrating for investigators because the concert venue should have provided numerous witnesses and potential evidence. However, the crowded conditions and limited security infrastructure had made it difficult to track Lisa's movements or identify potential suspects. Detective Mitchell continued to focus on the theory that Lisa had been abducted by someone who was familiar with the theater or who had been specifically targeting young women at the concert. However, identifying such a person proved extremely challenging given the number of people who had been at the venue. As the investigation continued into the winter of 1994 to 1995, it became clear that solving Lisa's disappearance would require either new evidence or a breakthrough in understanding what had happened during those crucial minutes when she had vanished from the theater. The mystery of Lisa Chen would haunt Portland's music community for years, casting a shadow over concerts and events as people remembered the teenager who had simply wanted to hear her favorite band's music but had never made it home. Chapter 3: Cold Case. The months and years following Lisa Chen's disappearance were marked by tireless efforts from her family and periodic reviews by law enforcement, but the case gradually took on the characteristics of an unsolved mystery that seemed destined to remain forever open. David and Helen Chen refused to accept that their daughter had simply vanished without explanation. They maintained regular contact with Detective Mitchell and other investigators, providing them with any new information or potential leads that came to their attention. The Chen family also worked with national missing person organizations, sharing Lisa's story and photograph through various media channels. They participated in awareness campaigns and spoke at events designed to educate families about missing person cases and safety precautions. Detective Mitchell continued to review Lisa's case file monthly, looking for connections to similar disappearances or new investigative techniques that might provide fresh insights. She maintained communication with the FBI and regularly checked databases for patterns that might link Lisa's case to other crimes. In 1995, 1 year after Lisa's disappearance, the case was featured on the television show America's Most Wanted. The program included interviews with Lisa's family and friends, as well as a detailed reconstruction of her last known movements at the Riverside Theater. The television exposure generated hundreds of tips from viewers across the country, but most proved to be false leads or cases of mistaken identity. Several people reported seeing young women who resembled Lisa in various states, but investigation revealed that none of these sightings involved Lisa herself. One tip that seemed particularly credible came from a woman in Seattle who reported seeing a girl matching Lisa's description with a man at a music store in Capitol Hill. The witness provided specific details about the girl's appearance and behavior that seemed consistent with Lisa's characteristics. Investigators traveled to Seattle to follow up on this lead, interviewing the witness and reviewing security footage from the music store. However, the footage was too unclear to make a positive identification, and the lead ultimately proved to be another dead end. The false leads were emotionally exhausting for the Chen family, who experienced renewed hope with each tip followed by crushing disappointment when it didn't provide answers. Helen Chen later described this period as living in a state of suspended grief. Meanwhile, the Riverside Theater continued to operate as a music venue, though Lisa's disappearance had affected the staff and management deeply. New security measures were implemented, including additional cameras and improved lighting in areas that had previously been poorly monitored. The theater's janitor during the time of Lisa's disappearance had been Frank Sullivan, a 55-year-old man who had worked at the venue for 3 years. Sullivan had been interviewed during the original investigation and had provided information about his cleaning routine and observations from the night of the concert. Sullivan had reported that he had seen nothing unusual during his post-concert cleanup and had found no evidence that anyone had remained in the building after the venue was cleared. His background check had revealed no criminal history, and he had seemed genuinely concerned about Lisa's disappearance. In early 1996, Sullivan left his position at the Riverside Theater due to health problems and was replaced by Marcus Williams, a 42-year-old maintenance worker who had previously worked at various Portland venues and office buildings. Williams brought a more systematic approach to the maintenance work at the theater, conducting thorough inspections of all building systems and identifying areas that needed repair or improvement. His attention to detail would prove crucial to eventually solving Lisa's case. Throughout 1996, the investigation into Lisa's disappearance continued at a reduced level, with Detective Mitchell following up on occasional tips and reviewing the case for any new developments. However, no significant progress was made in determining what had happened to Lisa. The Chen family marked the second anniversary of Lisa's disappearance with a memorial service at their church, attended by friends, classmates, and community members who had been affected by her case. The service provided some comfort but also emphasized the ongoing pain of not knowing Lisa's fate. In December 1996, as the theater prepared for its annual holiday concert series, Marcus Williams was conducting routine maintenance that would finally provide the breakthrough the investigation had been seeking for over 2 years. Williams was cleaning the building's ventilation system, a task that involved accessing ductwork throughout the theater to remove accumulated dust and debris. This maintenance work required opening wall vents and inspecting the air circulation systems that most people never saw. On December 14, 1996, while cleaning a vent in a storage area behind the theater's main stage, Williams made a discovery that would finally solve Lisa Chen's disappearance. Deep inside the ductwork, he found a leather jacket that had been deliberately stuffed into the ventilation shaft and hidden for over 2 years. The jacket was a women's-size small black leather jacket with several distinctive patches and pins, including band logos and political buttons that were popular among alternative music fans in the mid-1990s. Williams immediately recognized that the jacket seemed out of place and potentially significant. When Williams examined the jacket more closely, he found items in the pockets that would immediately identify it as belonging to Lisa Chen. The jacket contained Lisa's student ID card, her house keys, and a concert ticket stub from the November 19, 1994 Nirvana tribute show. Williams immediately contacted the theater management, who called the Portland Police Department to report the discovery. Detective Mitchell arrived at the theater within an hour, accompanied by forensic technicians who would carefully examine the jacket and the location where it had been found. The discovery of Lisa's jacket in the theater's ventilation system would not only confirm that she had never left the building alive, but would also provide crucial evidence about who had been responsible for her disappearance and murder. Chapter 4. The Hidden Evidence. December 14, 1996 was the day that would finally solve one of Portland's most perplexing missing person cases. Janitor Marcus Williams was conducting routine maintenance on the Riverside Theater's ventilation system when he made a discovery that would provide answers to questions that had haunted the community for over 2 years. Williams was working in a storage area behind the main stage, cleaning out air vents that hadn't been properly maintained for several years. The storage area was rarely accessed except for equipment retrieval and was not visible to concert patrons or most theater staff. As Williams removed the metal grating from a large wall vent, he immediately noticed that something was blocking the airflow deep inside the ductwork. Using a flashlight and a long-handled tool, he carefully extracted what appeared to be a piece of clothing that had been deliberately stuffed into the ventilation shaft. The item was a black leather jacket that showed signs of having been forcibly compressed to fit into the narrow ductwork. The jacket was dusty and had obviously been in the vent for a considerable time, but it was otherwise well preserved due to the dry conditions inside the ventilation system. Williams examined the jacket and immediately noticed several distinctive features that suggested it belonged to a young person who was interested in alternative music. The jacket had numerous band patches sewn onto it, including logos for Nirvana, Soundgarden, and other grunge bands popular in the mid-1990s. When Williams checked the jacket's pockets, he found items that would immediately identify its owner and connect it to the Lisa Chen case. The jacket contained a Franklin High School student ID card with Lisa's photograph, a set of house keys, and a ticket stub from the November 19, 1994 Nirvana tribute concert. Williams realized that he had discovered crucial evidence in Lisa's disappearance and immediately stopped his work to contact theater management. The discovery was reported to the Portland Police Department, and Detective Mitchell was notified of the significant development. Detective Mitchell arrived at the Riverside Theater at 3:30 p.m., accompanied by forensic technicians and evidence specialists. The storage area where the jacket had been found was immediately secured as a crime scene, and a systematic examination of the location began. The jacket was carefully documented and photographed before being transported to the police forensics laboratory for detailed analysis. The location inside the ventilation system where it had been hidden was also thoroughly examined for any additional evidence. The discovery of Lisa's jacket inside the theater confirmed that she had never left the building alive on November 19, 1994. The jacket had been deliberately hidden in a location where it was unlikely to be discovered during normal operations or routine cleaning. Forensic analysis of the jacket revealed several crucial pieces of evidence. In addition to Lisa's personal items, the jacket contained traces of blood that would later be confirmed through DNA testing to belong to Lisa. The blood evidence indicated that Lisa had been injured while wearing the jacket. The jacket also contained fibers and other trace evidence that would help investigators understand what had happened to Lisa and potentially identify her attacker. The preservation of the evidence inside the dry ventilation system had maintained the integrity of material that might have been degraded in other environments. The investigation immediately focused on who would have had the knowledge and access necessary to hide the jacket in such a remote location within the theater. The storage area where the jacket was found was accessible only to theater employees and was not an area that casual visitors would know about or be able to access. Detective Mitchell began interviewing all current and former theater employees who would have had access to the storage area and knowledge of the building's ventilation system. This investigation revealed that the list of potential suspects was relatively small. The most significant person of interest was Frank Sullivan, the janitor who had been working at the theater during the time of Lisa's disappearance. Sullivan would have had access to all areas of the building and would have been familiar with the ventilation system and its potential for concealing evidence. When investigators attempted to locate Sullivan for questioning about the jacket discovery, they learned that he had died of a heart attack in August 1996, about 4 months before the evidence was found. His death meant that he could not be directly questioned, but investigators began examining his background more thoroughly. The investigation revealed that Sullivan had been alone in the theater for several hours after the November 19, 1994 concert, conducting his normal cleanup routine. During this time, he would have had the opportunity to encounter Lisa if she had remained in the building for any reason. Sullivan's work duties included cleaning restrooms, emptying trash, and securing the building after events. His routine would have taken him to all areas of the theater, including the storage area where Lisa's jacket was eventually found. The investigation also revealed that Sullivan had access to keys for all areas of the theater and would have been able to move freely throughout the building without arousing suspicion from security personnel or other staff members. Most significantly, investigators discovered that Sullivan had called in sick for several days following Lisa's disappearance, claiming he was suffering from a severe flu. However, co-workers had noted that Sullivan seemed nervous and agitated when he returned to work, behavior that was unusual for him. The forensic analysis of Lisa's jacket also revealed evidence that helped investigators understand the circumstances of her death. The blood evidence and the condition of the jacket suggested that Lisa had been attacked in a location within the theater and that her body had been moved to another location. The discovery of Lisa's jacket in the ventilation system provided the breakthrough that investigators had been seeking for over 2 years. While Frank Sullivan's death meant that he could never be prosecuted for Lisa's murder, the evidence strongly suggested that he had been responsible for her death and the concealment of her body. Chapter 5. The Final Truth. The discovery of Lisa Chen's jacket in the Riverside Theater's ventilation system on December 14, 1996, marked a turning point in the investigation, but it also raised urgent questions about the location of Lisa's body and the exact circumstances of her death over 2 years earlier. Detective Mitchell immediately organized a comprehensive search of the Riverside Theater, focusing on areas that Frank Sullivan would have had access to during his tenure as the venue's janitor. The search teams used ground-penetrating radar, cadaver dogs, and other advanced techniques to examine every possible location where a body might have been concealed. The investigation revealed that Sullivan had been responsible for maintenance of the theater's basement areas, including storage rooms, utility spaces, and the building's foundation areas that were rarely accessed by other staff members. These areas became the focus of intensive searching efforts. On December 18, 1996, search teams made the discovery that would finally provide complete answers about Lisa's fate. In a sealed storage room in the theater's basement, investigators found Lisa's remains, carefully wrapped and hidden behind heating equipment that Sullivan had been responsible for maintaining. The forensic examination of Lisa's remains confirmed that she had died from blunt force trauma to the head, consistent with being struck by a heavy object. The condition of the remains and the evidence at the scene suggested that Lisa had been killed elsewhere in the theater and then moved to the basement storage room. The investigation revealed that Lisa had likely been attacked in or near the women's restroom where she was last seen alive. The blood evidence on her jacket and the forensic analysis of the crime scene suggested that she had been struck down while trying to defend herself. Based on the evidence gathered from multiple sources, investigators were able to reconstruct the events of November 19, 1994, with considerable accuracy. Lisa had gone to the restroom during the final minutes of the concert, as she had told her friends she planned to do. While in or near the restroom area, Lisa had encountered Frank Sullivan, who was beginning his post-concert cleanup routine. For reasons that would never be fully understood, Sullivan had attacked Lisa, possibly after she had witnessed him engaging in suspicious behavior or had refused his advances. The evidence suggested that Sullivan had killed Lisa in a moment of panic or rage, then had spent the hours after the concert ended concealing evidence of his crime. He had hidden Lisa's body in the basement storage room and had stuffed her distinctive jacket into the ventilation system where it wouldn't be discovered during normal operations. Sullivan's cleanup duties had provided him with the perfect cover for his activities that night. Other staff members and security personnel would have expected to see him moving around the theater with cleaning equipment and containers, allowing him to transport Lisa's body without arousing suspicion. The investigation also revealed that Sullivan had made several changes to his normal routine in the days following Lisa's disappearance. He had called in sick for several days, claiming illness, and had seemed nervous and agitated when he returned to work. Co-workers reported that Sullivan had asked unusual questions about the police investigation and had seemed overly interested in what evidence investigators were looking for. His behavior had been noted but hadn't raised serious suspicions at the time. The discovery of Lisa's body also explained why the extensive searches of the area around the theater had failed to find any trace of her. She had never left the building, and Sullivan had successfully concealed her body in a location that was not thoroughly searched during the original investigation. The case highlighted the vulnerabilities that existed in the theater's security and staffing protocols. Sullivan had been able to work alone for hours after events ended, with minimal supervision or oversight of his activities in the building's remote areas. For the Chen family, the discovery of Lisa's remains provided the closure they had desperately sought for over 2 years, though it also brought the devastating confirmation that their daughter had been murdered by someone who was supposed to ensure the safety of theater patrons. David and Helen Chen expressed gratitude to Marcus Williams, the janitor whose thorough maintenance work had led to the discovery of Lisa's jacket and ultimately to the solution of her case. Williams' attention to detail had succeeded where previous investigations had been unable to find evidence. The case had a significant impact on security protocols at entertainment venues throughout Portland and Oregon. The Riverside Theater implemented new procedures requiring multiple staff members to be present during post-event cleanup and installed additional security cameras in previously unmonitored areas. The investigation also led to improved background checking procedures for theater employees and better protocols for accounting for all patrons after events ended. Lisa's case became a catalyst for industry-wide improvements in venue security. Frank Sullivan's death in 1996 had prevented him from facing justice for his crimes, but the discovery of Lisa's jacket and body had finally provided answers about her fate and had exposed the truth about one of Portland's most disturbing crimes. The Chen family established a memorial scholarship in Lisa's name at Franklin High School, providing support for students interested in music and journalism. The scholarship ensured that Lisa's memory would live on through the pursuits she had been passionate about during her short life. The Riverside Theater installed a memorial plaque in Lisa's honor, acknowledging the tragedy that had occurred within its walls and committing to maintaining the highest standards of safety for all patrons. The venue continued to host concerts while serving as a reminder of the importance of protecting young people who simply wanted to enjoy live music. The ventilation shaft that had concealed Lisa's jacket for over 2 years had finally given up its secrets, demonstrating that persistence, thorough investigation, and sometimes routine maintenance work could bring justice and closure even in the most challenging cases. Final words. The resolution of Lisa Chen's case in 1996 brought closure to one of Portland's most tragic missing person investigations. The discovery of her jacket in the theater's ventilation system had finally provided answers to questions that had haunted her family and the community for over 2 years. Lisa's story led to significant improvements in security protocols at entertainment venues throughout Oregon and beyond. The case demonstrated how trusted employees could exploit their access and knowledge to commit and conceal crimes, leading to enhanced background checking and supervision procedures. The Chen family's advocacy work following the resolution of Lisa's case helped improve missing person investigation techniques and venue security standards. They worked tirelessly to ensure that other families would not experience the uncertainty and suffering that had defined their lives for 2 years. Marcus Williams continued his work as a maintenance professional, always remembering the discovery that had solved Lisa's case. His thorough approach to building maintenance had been crucial to uncovering evidence that had remained hidden for years. The Riverside Theater implemented comprehensive security improvements and became a model for venue safety throughout the Pacific Northwest. The theater's commitment to patron safety honored Lisa's memory while ensuring that similar tragedies could be prevented. Today, Lisa Chen's legacy lives on through the scholarship program established in her name and the safety improvements that resulted from her case. Her story serves as a reminder that the search for missing persons must be thorough and persistent, and that answers can sometimes be found in the most unexpected places. The jacket hidden in the ventilation shaft had preserved crucial evidence for over 2 years, waiting for someone with the right combination of diligence and access to discover it. Lisa's case demonstrated that justice can prevail even when perpetrators believe they have successfully concealed their crimes. Frank Sullivan's ability to hide his crime for years had been overcome by the determination of investigators and the meticulous work of a maintenance professional who understood that every detail mattered. The truth about Lisa's fate had finally emerged from the very building where she had lost her life, bringing closure to a family and justice for a young woman whose only crime had been wanting to hear her favorite music performed live.